So I think this is an absolutely atrocious program. I think it totally takes away our constitutional rights. And I think that it's at the behest of a foreign government. Israel has nothing to do with us. And I think it proves pretty clearly who's in charge of this government. You and I might have some disagreements about that. I'm curious about that because I don't know your position. But first, let's find out the facts and then we'll discuss.
Also, really quickly, I just want to chime in. It is not illegal to engage in anti-Semitic behavior in America. Like, even if that was what Mahmoud Khalil was accused of, he was still legally allowed to be in the country. He was married to a U.S. citizen. It is absolutely not what he was accused of. But even if you are going to give into that framework, it's still not against the law. So what they're arguing that he did still shouldn't require him to be deported or detained or anything like that.
Yep, as a teaser to that, I couldn't disagree with that statement you just made anymore, but we'll get into it. In a press release on Wednesday, the government said today U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the USCIS, will begin considering aliens' anti-Semitic activity on social media and the physical harassment of Jewish individuals as grounds for denying immigration benefit requests. This will immediately affect aliens applying for lawful permanent resident status, foreign students, and aliens affiliated with educational institutions linked to anti-Semitic activity. Cenk, before I throw it back to you to clarify why I said I disagree, was I don't even understand what your statement was, because I know you're pretty hostile toward the Israeli government, and to some degree that's appropriate, but this doesn't say anything about Israel. This talks about anti-Semitism, violent displays of that, aggression towards Jewish students, and that's Jewish students in America that may or may not have any.
That's the most relatable thing Cenk has done in forever, because he knows this is all horseshit. He knows it's all horseshit. It's why Gavin and I did not for 1 second buy into any of the whole, like, you guys know there's a real anti-Semitism problem on the left in this country, right? And I was like, no, there's not, dude. I have never interacted with a single person that I would consider on the left that I would interpret as an anti-Semite. Okay, there are multiple people on the right wing in this country who I would 100% argue are anti-Semitic, and I would never challenge that there is a anti-Semitism problem on the American right, but they're not so concerned about that. They're interested in the Free Palestine movement being labeled anti-Semitic so that they can criminalize and oppress them.
Yeah, and by the way, just pay attention to Cenk's body language, his profuse sweat. He's pissed, bro. Like, he's clearly taking out some personal issues on Ben here. Not just because he actually gets passionate about the subject matter, but I genuinely sense that he's actually pissed off, right? And he's kind of like, fuck it, I'm not going to hold back. You know, I'm ready to just bulldoze this asshole. And good for Cenk. You know, I will give credit where credit is due. I think he's 100% on point for the most part in this debate. The problem is the elephant in the room. You just fired Francesca. Why the fuck is this guy still here? Why the fuck do we still have to listen to Ben Gleib after you fired all the good people left at TYT? We still have to listen to this genocidal lunatic, like, what, once a month, twice a month, whatever. You guys are about to hear. This is going to get crazy.
Anything to do with or even support Israel. You can shake your head, but
no, when it's nothing but, look, so Ben, let's get into it.
Anti-Semitism, that's not anything to do with Israel.
Okay, so let's take it one by one. So I'm going to disprove that in a second, but first, let's just give it to them for the sake of argument and say that it's genuinely not about Israel and they're really concerned about anti-Semitism. So one question at a time on it, Ben. So why are we only concerned about anti-Semitism? Why aren't we scouring social media posts to find out if people hate America or Christianity or Islam? I mean, certainly there's millions of comments.
They're going to start with the Christianity. Don't worry, Cenk.
That are Islamophobic. And certainly on college campuses, there's got to be thousands upon thousands. So why only anti-Semitism?
They should be doing it for any hate speech entirely, because being here is a privilege and not a right if you're not an American citizen. But there is an unbelievable rise in anti-Semitism, so it's appropriate to focus on that. There can be some times when we focus on the rising problem, we can sometimes, as a nation collectively, protect Jewish people who are under attack.
So don't you think that there's
it would be one thing, like we mentioned earlier, it would be one thing if they actually had gone after people that were accused of or like genuinely found guilty of committing acts of hate crimes, like actually committing violent hate crimes or doing things that are illegal against Jewish students. But sorry, bro, free speech exists in this fucking country, and we have the right to criticize Israel. We have the right to criticize Turkey. We have the right to criticize Saudi Arabia or Qatar or whatever the fuck. And guess what? I hate to say it, but yeah, you also do have the right to be racist or to post something that's anti-Semitic or to post something that's Islamophobic. You don't just get to deport students because you don't agree with their politics or their standpoint on something, even if it was offensive.
And this is what I find really disturbing, guys. this is not a nation of privileges. This is a nation where we have rights. And the second that they start talking about rights for other people as privileges, you know your rights are about to become privileges. Because what is he talking about right now? He read the fucking article, the bullshit article, which included Mahmoud Khalil and being like, oh, these visa holders are going to be investigated. Mahmoud Khalil was not a visa holder. He was a permanent resident that was married to a United States citizen, and he is subject to the same laws as me, as Gavin, as Ben, as Cenk. So as soon as you start eroding that guy's rights in this country and calling them privileges, you've come after my rights. You've come after all of our rights. That's why people are fired up and pissed off. And if you think for 1 second this is divorced from the hundreds of millions of dollars that the Israeli government spends buying our politicians, you're fucking insane. You're just a liar. You're just a liar, okay? There are 10 million Jews on this fucking planet, dude, okay? There are fuckloads of Muslims. There is, by scale, as just a direct result of that, no other metrics being included, there's going to be more instances of Islamophobia, right? There's going to be more instances of hate that you can document against people who are of a Muslim background than there are of people who are of a Jewish background. We don't see any kind of an effort to criminalize or deport people who come after Muslim folks. We have an entire national history of oppressing, degrading, killing Muslim people at a scale we have never fucked with basically any other ethnic group. We killed 1 million people in Iraq. We killed fucking hundreds of thousands of people across Afghanistan, Syria, Somalia. Okay, if there was any kind of a national effort to make sure that we are putting our best foot forwards and making sure that we're not antagonizing ethnic groups, it would be surrounding the Muslim community. So I just want to put that out there, okay? Not that there's ever an excuse to be hateful to any group, but if we're just arguing by numbers, there should be an effort to protect Muslim people before anyone else.
Damn straight.
An incredible rise of Islamophobia as well.
I don't see that on par at all.
You don't. Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
No,
okay.
I don't.
Number two,
no,
you know
I
that being
massive protests on our campuses against the Islamic community or against the Muslim community.
No,
they're against Israel.
The counter-protesters say the most vicious anti-Muslim rhetoric. There's no consequences at all. Apparently, that's perfectly okay. So number two, you know that saying things that are anti-Semitic are perfectly constitutional, and you know that the Constitution applies to non-citizens. So how is this in any way constitutional?
The Constitution may apply, but not all constitutional protections for citizens apply to non-citizens. Quite obviously, also being here is a privilege. You don't get to have a student visa if you chant "Death to America" and you advocate for the end of America. And then you said, "Why not the U.S.?" This policy also does attack or target people that are anti-American as well.
They mention it once in passing. The whole thing's about anti-Semitism. Theoretically,
but the bill is about the physical. But the bill is about the physical harassment of Jewish individuals and people supporting terrorist activities and terrorist organizations.
You know the two people
100%.
The two people that
he thinks he's on Israeli television
rounded up so far were, one of them spoke out against anti-Semitism. They have no evidence of anti-Semitism. They've already got 300 people on a list. They have no evidence of supporting Hamas or terrorism. All they have is, well, they criticize Israel or they were pro-Palestine. Do you really think that out of the 1.5 million people, they're actually looking for people who did violence? Because if they did violence, they should be arrested. That's not a question. Everybody agrees to that. No, they're looking for criticism of Israel. It's super obvious. And it's unconstitutional. Even if they said "Death to America," which I hate, I don't want people saying that. It's still protected by the First Amendment. And if you're in America, you are protected by the First Amendment, no matter what your citizenship status is. So now
it is baffling to me that Cenk has to explain that to Ben Gleib, who has been a news contributor on this network for over a decade, if I'm not mistaken, Gavin, longer than that. I mean, this guy has been in the business for a long time. And I mean, you would have had to have missed out on countless news stories where this was extremely important. Do you not remember the entire NSA stories, the scandal, all of the different things that they had to do to circumvent United States protections that you still legally have, why they would follow people out of the country and use loopholes in countries like UK, New Zealand, Australia, etc.? Like, that was a big part of the fact that no matter who you are, even if you are a suspect, right? And the United States violates these laws all the time. I'm not trying to give credit where credit isn't due, but at least they had the fucking supposed protections of the law. Why do you think Guantanamo Bay exists? Why do you think Donald Trump sends people there? Why do you think George Bush sent people there? Because it wasn't on United States soil, so you do not have right. Those people that we put on Guantanamo Bay, they weren't American citizens, but if they were in America, we would have had to have given them a speedy trial. We would have had to tell them what crime they were charged with, right? They would have been given access to a court-appointed attorney. They would have had access to shared laws. That's what we do in this country. And this is coming from the people who supposedly say they care about the fucking Constitution. I don't care what you say about Ben Gleib. That guy's a Republican to me forever.
We're going to trash it on behalf of a foreign government. This is absurd.
No, I think that's fully ridiculous what you're saying there. I 100% agree with you that you should not be having your status revoked or deported if you are simply supporting a free Palestine. I support a free Palestine. We need this in the world deeply. I support the rights to protest for the Palestinian people, for an end to the war, protest against the Israeli government. All of that is wonderful and very American behavior. I do not think that you should be able to stay in this country or have your application to come here approved if you are chanting death to America, or if you're chanting for the end of the Jewish state, or if you're supporting Hamas.
Okay.
And
so if you're saying,
there it is. He gives it away. If you're chanting for the end of the Jewish state, that's not America.
100%.
yeah. So you're
Would he support if there was the same, kind of consequences if you said something bad against Mecca? Oh, you can't, where's that at? Saudi Arabia? Oh, you can't say anything bad about Mecca. You can't say anything against the Muslim holy site. Otherwise, you have to have your student visa revoked. You can't say anything bad. You know what I mean?
You just said it.
You
If you're talking about the Jewish state, Israel, you shouldn't be allowed in this country. That's insane. How about if they chanted death to Erdogan or Turkey, or they say that the Turkish government shouldn't exist, it should be Armenia, Greece, etc. Should we block them? Turkey is a super important ally. Should we block them from coming into the country?
What I'm saying to you is the call for Israel to not exist is different than speaking against Erdogan's government. You can speak, I already said it twice, against the Israeli government all that you want, but calling for the destruction or eradication of the Israel state is calling for the annihilation of the Jewish people,
how about this,
the global population.
So
that's different. I would support the same exact statement against Muslims.
No, you wouldn't, because so here's a situation. Literally every Israeli supporter in their actions say that Palestine shouldn't exist. So should we throw them all out? Any Israeli or any Israeli supporter that says Palestine shouldn't exist and there shouldn't be two states, we throw the bums out?
You said every Israeli supporter says Palestine shouldn't exist. That's a blatant lie. That's
no, that's in your. I said in your actions. In your actions, are you?
How so?
Because you say that the occupation should continue. Why shouldn't they be an independent state right now?
Have never in a million years said the occupation should continue. I've said a million times that the Palestinian people need a government that accepts a peace plan, including any of the many that they've been offered.
If, but right now they shouldn't exist. But if they pass all of your absurd tests, maybe they could exist at a much later time. But you get to stay, everybody gets to stay that believes that. Everybody who says that Muslims should be wiped out and they're all Nazis, etc. Everybody gets to stay unless you criticize one particular set of people. Ben, how do you not see that this is going to drive more anti-Semitism rather than less anti-Semitism?
Absurd tests to you literally are simply they stop promising to kill all of the Jewish people in Israel, therefore more than half of the global population.
That is not the test at all.
And live in peace.
Absurd. And how about this? How about all the Israeli supporters that don't mind 50,000 people that are murdered in Gaza? Well, that's wiping out people. That's literally, and that did actually happen. It's not theoretical. It's not at a later time. It already happened. So calling for the murder of all those people, perfectly fine. One thing you cannot criticize in this country, Israel. And so why is it Israel and not Jews overall?
And by the way, it's so true. Like my entire life, basically, saying anything anti-Semitic immediately would get you fired, immediately would get you canceled. Even in the pre-cancel culture era, like anti-Semitism was the one line you really could never fucking cross, right? But guess what has been tolerated my entire life? Insane Islamophobic talking points, obviously in the wake of the Iraq War and 9/11 specifically, but just in general. I mean, tons of people like Ben Shapiro, for example, has said things like, Arabs love to live in sewage and bomb shit. Imagine, someone saying something similar about the Jewish population, then going on to have as big of a career and getting invited on mainstream platforms like Ben Shapiro has. It just wouldn't happen. It just simply wouldn't. So that's 100% on point.
Yeah, and it honestly, guys, watching this, it makes me sad to think that we lost Cenk as such an articulate, ardent, steadfast supporter of progressive politics, right? The fact that he started to bend the knee on the most ridiculous culture war issues as a way of inviting a right-wing audience to him, when he could have been standing up for trans people like he stands up for Palestine, when he could have been standing up for Black Lives Matter like he stands up for Palestine, when he could have stood up to Polymarket and talked about how cryptocurrency is crazy and called Donald Trump a fascist and said we have to rally behind Bernie Sanders, or whatever, and fight the oligarchy. And he could have made it a lot a better network. You know what? He still has some sauce in there. I've said it before that maybe he's lost the sauce. Clearly he hasn't, guys.
On this one issue, he has not lost the sauce. He consistently does a great job.
Yeah, it's and it is really powerful to watch this. And I'm almost glad that Ben Gleib was brought on for this segment, because I do think it's important to take all of these nonsense liberal Zionist talking points, put them into the Trump era, say, look, we've been under Donald Trump's rule for 3 months. This is what's happening. Do you stand for this? And as they gish gallop and have to defend what is indefensible, when they have to expose themselves as not understanding the fundamental rights that every single person on American soil has, it starts to bring the wall down.
Yeah, no, I agree. As much as the only thing that I have an issue with Ben Gleib being employed at TYT is that other people like Francesca have been fired. If they hadn't been fired, yeah, I don't really care. Like, I don't mind seeing this debate. I think you're right. It does offer a great opportunity for Cenk to really let loose and destroy some of this bullshit.
Oh, yeah. And great point about Francesca. Obviously, it's insane that Cenk would continue to have a guy like Ben on the payroll and not somebody like Francesca who's actually interested in a progressive message, and that he hasn't drawn a line in the sand and said, I can't employ somebody who is going to defend an ethnic cleansing and a genocide on air from my progressive network. Right.
So, according to the absurd definition,
that's another thing that you always conflate. That's another thing you always conflate, Cenk. You act as though somehow people that want the existential promise and threat and constant effort to annihilate us, you say that that the people on that side are totally okay with the murder of Palestinians. That is libel. That is not true. We are abhorred by the murder of them.
Under your insane standard, I would be kicked out of the country, because they say among the different definitions of anti-Semitism is denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. So that is not about Jews. That's about Israel. That's about Israel, okay? Number two.
And this is 100% a racist endeavor. There's no way to deny it, guys. Making an ethno-state, there would be no way for us to argue that we need a Presbyterian state. There would be no way for people to argue. Like, if the people of the Mormon faith got together and they were like, we want to claim Missouri, our Garden of Eden is independent, nobody else really wants this place, like, can we just like, the United States government would be like, no. You know what I mean? You cannot have an ethnic state that is just full of Mormon people. You can't have an ethnic state that's just full of, Satanists, right? You would never, they used to burn witches. There's no safe place for the freaking Satanists, right? Well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to get by in America because we don't believe in ethno states. We're not going to encourage, just a singular fucking race state. A country based off of one group of people, that's not fit for the modern world, unfortunately.
Yeah, and also no one's even trying to fucking genocide the Jewish people. Like, that's literally not something that's happening. What is happening is an attempted genocide on the Palestinian people, a population that is genuinely at risk of fucking going extinct. Like, I'm not kidding. It's literally existential for this entire culture. This incredibly fucking emaciated, at this point, starving, dominated, beaten, and abused fucking people that is continually shrinking due to the active death and destruction being funded by America and being carried out by Israel. It's not a fucking question. And there's already less Palestinian people in the world than there are Jewish people. So if you want to freak out about any group and, talk about existential threats to its existence, you should be worried more about the Palestinian people. No one is genociding the Jews right now.
Yep.
There's 7 of these. I'm only going to read 3.
Hold on,
let me read them. Applying double standards by requiring it of a behavior not expected or demand of any other democratic nation. 100% about Israel, not about Jews. Number 3, using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel to characterize Israel or Israelis. So whenever you talk about the 15 to 20,000 children murdered in Gaza, they say, oh, blood libel. Okay, that's it. Deport him. You can't criticize Israel. This is definitely a definition.
Oh, people have said that.
That is meant to protect Israel above all other countries. And to say that the American government serves Norway and France and Canada and Israel equally and America equally is beyond absurd. There's only one country that gets to say, if you criticize Israel, you'll be deported from America. And I hate it. I loathe it. And all of your excuses are insane.
You are just full of illogical inconsistencies where you jump. You're saying that people who claim that.
Sorry to keep cutting it, but can you imagine if we ever got a debate this spicy? Like, we've had some pretty intense tussles on air, but can you imagine me just saying that to you? Like, I would get pissed if you said that shit to me, not gonna lie.
What's funny is that Cenk gets so sensitive when Francesca was like, "You're brain broken, right? You've lost your mind," and now he's gonna hurl all of this shit out. What you can tell is that Cenk is genuinely pissed. He's pissed off.
That's what I was saying, bro. He's taking out some shit on this conversation, I think.
Honestly, good for him. Because if Gavin ever did start fucking sipping for Israel and a fucking genocide, I would be so pissed at him, I would have to take it out on air too.
that Israel should not exist, that yet again is because it's the only Jewish state on planet Earth, that is the call for the annihilation of the Jewish people. And the call for the annihilation of any people.
I don't believe, look, first of all, I don't agree with that stance, but that's not what it means. So first of all, when people say there should be one state, you can interpret that to mean that Israel should not exist. That doesn't mean you murder everyone there. Now, I don't agree with a one-state solution, and I believe Israel should exist, and I believe it should be a safe haven for Jews. But if somebody
So you fucked yourself, bro. After all of this, you're like, you know what? I think we should have an ethno state, and it should be Israel, and it should be a safe haven for Israel. That's why I don't support a one-state solution. Come on, Cenk, you were so close.
says I think there should be one state, kicking him out of the country for their opinion on Israel? Come on, Ben. How is that about anti-Semitism? That's 100% about protecting Israel and only Israel.
Because it's the only safe haven on planet Earth for Jewish people.
No.
Why aren't Jewish people safe in America, Ben? Ben, are you under duress? Blink twice if you need me and Gavin to come rescue you. Do we need to SWAT your house? Do we need to have somebody bail it? Are you like that man who was held for 20 years in his bedroom, okay, because his crazy stepmother pretended he wasn't alive, he had to set fire to Germex? If that's you, Ben, blink twice. We'll get you out, brother. We'll get you some therapy and maybe you can be safe. But I don't believe the Jewish people are under duress in America. I know a lot of Jewish people in my life. They seem to be doing just all right here.
And not just America, lots of countries. Like I said, no one is trying to genocide the fucking Jews. Like, you think if some Jewish people were like living in France, that there would be like some pogrom against them and all these French would come and like crucify them in the town square? Like, that's just not happening, bro. Like, unfortunately, the patch of fucking land that you chose to set up your so-called safe haven actually is one of the least safe places for Jews. Why do you think these Israeli people are always posting screenshots of all the rockets, incoming on Tel Aviv? Look at all the, bomb sirens going off. This is us under attack or whatever. It's like, that doesn't happen in America. I don't think, Ben Gleib experiences that as a Jewish man living in this country. So they literally chose the least safe fucking country to set up shop. And they're like, this is our safe space. You can never criticize it because this is the only place we can be safe. Meanwhile, they constantly bitch about how unsafe it is.
Well, America's a safe haven. America's a safe haven.
Where is America's a safe haven?
Yes.
You're sitting here literally saying that we shouldn't have policies that stop physical harassment of Jewish people.
I did not say that at all. You do physical harassment, that's against the law, and I would definitely rule it.
It's already against the law. It's kind of like, you oppose making it against the law for undocumented people to vote. And it's like, bro, that is the law. What are you talking about? You can't vote if you're undocumented. Like, then why are you opposing this legislation? Because it's a fascist law that makes something illegal that's already, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what you're doing is you're creating a new level of punishment for people who were not breaking the law before. You know what I mean? It's an excuse to deport.
Yeah, and as Cenk said, it's already like you already can't do that. Like, there already are rules against that. You can't harass anyone, let alone what religion they're a part of. You can't just fucking go do that to people. Like, yeah, no, you're gonna face fucking consequences for doing that no matter what. That already exists. Creating this new guideline is just a fucking way to penalize criticism of Israel, which, by the way, oftentimes comes from fucking Jews, bro. Like, a couple weeks ago, there was a huge demonstration at Trump Tower where a bunch of Palestinian, anti-Israel activists flooded and occupied the entire lower level of Trump Tower in New York City. Guess what kind of people those were, Zach? They were all Jews. It was Jews.
Wow, what kind of people?
You know what I'm saying?
I'm kidding, dude. No.
You know what I'm fucking saying? They were fucking Jews. Jews are leading the resistance to Israel.
Oh, 100%. I would say that across the board, that's true in the leftist space. Basically, everyone, you're either Palestinian or you're a Jewish anti-Zionist. Those are the people that I would say most consistently people look to for guidance. And just to double down on Gavin's point, the most hardcore, just steadfast criticism that I've ever heard of Israel has always come from anti-Zionist Jews, people
Straight
who
up.
feel very, very passionately about the history of the Holocaust being misappropriated. And they have every right to, but I just mean, if you watch Norm Finkelstein do a takedown of Israel, like you'll be like, whoa, dude. Like,
yeah.
And that's a Jewish man who I believe is like a practicing person of faith. Like, it's not just his culture.
100%. In the same way that sometimes like Catholics are the best to speak out against American foreign policy, because they're like, don't fucking use Christianity to justify these horrors. Yeah. 100% actual Jews are like, fuck no, don't use my religion. Fuck no, don't use my culture to justify this barbarism. It's insane.
against it. That's breaking a law. No, this is looking at 1.5 million people's social media to say if they said anything against Israel, which will then interpret as anti-Semitism. You're going with the most extreme example. That's not what they're looking for. Any critique of Israel will do it. And in fact, we have no idea what they're charging those 300 people they've already targeted. And the 2 people that we know for sure that have already been arrested and they're trying to deport said nothing that was anti-Semitic.
So that's where I totally agree with you. Of course, they need to be presenting the evidence, and it's total garbage for them to be detaining and or deporting anybody without presenting the evidence. But that's a different argument than saying you get to be in America on the privilege of a student visa or a temporary green card to be here and be active.
What the Trump administration is doing is not the thing he's been defending, but he's just been defending the concept of doing it, and because that's the justification they put out there. So you don't see how that's just fucking manufacturing consent for total fascism, bro? Like, even if you theoretically agree that in a perfect world, anti-Semitism should be penalized in this way, that's not even what's fucking happening. So why are you sitting here defending it? It's crazy.
Oh yeah, and not only that, TYT has demonstrated multiple times, to their credit, right, that what's happened to Mahmoud Khalil is completely unconstitutional. It's completely insane, and it violates all kinds of precedent that were held as our most ardent values up until this point. And yet Ben Gleib is still here saying like, no, that guy has to go.
Actively working against American interests, working against what America stands for, actively talking against our allies no matter where they are, and actively
really
calling
our
for
allies.
the annihilation
Saudi Arabia is
of
an
the Jewish
ally.
people.
Should we kick out anybody criticizing Saudi Arabia? And they're a Muslim state. They're a Muslim state.
If they say Saudi Arabia should be wiped off the planet, you should not be granted staying here in America.
What if they say Saudi Arabia should not exist as it is currently constituted? That doesn't mean killing.
All right, he wants Sam Harris deported, by the way. Sam Harris has called on multiple occasions for carpet bombing the Middle East and wiping Islam off the map. Okay, all of those intellectual dark web guys have said insane genocidal things about Muslims, about Saudi Arabia, about all of the Middle Eastern countries that we've gone to war with. Should they be rounded up and deported? Because I want to see them get the first plane out.
And look how evil he looks too. It looks like someone penciled on his fucking eyebrows to make him look like a villain in a fucking comic book or whatever. It's crazy, bro. But yeah, I mean, and it's like imagine right around the time of mass resistance and protest to South Africa. Imagine being the white people living in South Africa being like, what you want us to all just die? You're just gonna kill us all? Like, no, bro, you're not gonna get killed. There's still white people living in South Africa. In the same way, yeah, we could fix things in the region between Israel and Palestine, and it doesn't mean that all the fucking Jews would be killed. Obviously, no one. I've never heard anyone advocate that. Even the people that are on the fringe of the fringe don't fucking advocate for that. It's crazy to make that up and be like, oh, like, yeah, if you call for the utter obliteration of Saudi Arabia, then I do think that. It's like, well, no one's saying that about Israel, bro. And no one's saying that about Saudi Arabia either. You're just making shit up because you can't actually win an argument unless you're knocking down a straw man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and let's not pretend that for 40, 50 years in America, I think it would have been like 30 some odd years. I don't know. I'm not bad at math, but from the time that we started the Cold War to the time that the fall of the USSR, people were constantly clamoring. People were constantly cheering. People were constantly campaigning for the fall of the USSR, right? I'm not making that up. Go look, Google it. Be like X, Y, and Z. When were people calling for the fall of the USSR? Right? They were calling
people
for
do that with China too.
Exactly. And guess what? It's protected under the fucking freedom of speech that we have in this country. All right. And nobody was calling for that. None of those people got interpreted as saying we want to nuke Russia. We want to nuke the USSR. We want to kill all of the people that live in Russia, right? No, they were talking about the government wanting to be toppled. Even when you talk about like North Korea, like I hope North Korea falls, they mean they want the fucking leader to be deposed, right? And they want a unification of Korea, right? I'm not saying I agree with that, but nobody who says that means they want to kill off all of the North Koreans.
Yep.
All right. It's insane to think that. It's insane to interpret it that way. No matter how xenophobic you are, when you say you want China to fall, I don't imagine you're saying I want to kill 1 billion people. You know what I mean?
Bro, even when people say death to America, I don't really think they mean they want to kill every single American. Really, that's just a like kind of, hyperbolic, hey, I hope that America's negative influence around the world ends. That's what it means. Like, come on, bro, let's be serious.
Even that idiot Jackson Hinkle went and hung out with the Houthis in Yemen, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, brother, when we say death to America, we mean death to American empire, not our brothers like you in America. And he's like, of course, death to America, fuck America. You know what I mean? And they're like, yes, brother. And it's because people are opposed to the genocide machine, the meat grinder, the mass militarization of the world that the United States is responsible for. And I, as an American, totally understand that.
The Saudis, it means getting rid of their dictatorship.
Right. Speaking against the government is different than speaking against a nation, once again. But if you speak directly against the against a nation. And so if you seem for some reason to conflate, you always conflate the fact that we are in a war with the fact that somehow the Israeli people or Jewish people want that war or are okay with that. You also continually cite all the time.
Oh, bro, you want us to put up some Israeli news? You want us to throw up some there are no innocent Palestinians. Oh, we must have. They're all Hamas. You are advocating for a quote unquote war that has left more children amputees than any other conflict in history, that has taken the lives of tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 individuals, because the numbers that are released and put out that say 50,000, almost everybody believes that's just unfortunately a much smaller number than the devastation that's actually been imposed. Not that you would ever be looking for that number to be higher, but you just want it to be more honest as a way of capturing the level of destruction. But then obviously hundreds of thousands of people left permanently wounded. I mean, it's insane to sit here and call that a war is the only thing I'm saying. It is an absolute fuck. It's like calling what we're doing in the Middle East wars. It's like, no, dude, it's a fucking campaign of terror.
And it's just a conquest. Like they're just going to take the land. You know what I'm saying? They're not just defending themselves. No, they want to clear that land and take it so they can further expand the borders of Israel, because that's what it is. It's a settler colonialist project.
Yep. And that's why when Donald Trump had Netanyahu on Monday, all he talked about was, I love the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful piece of investment. That is great, fine, very fine real estate right there. That's what I care about.
Over and over again, the numbers of dead, while I don't know, I guess quite intentionally not mentioning that close to half of that are the terrorists, and then any war there's collateral damage. Of course, you specifically don't mention it.
Even the IDF doesn't make up that bad. The IDF is not outrageous enough to pretend that half of them was Hamas. First of all, 60% of them are women and children. Okay, do you believe that they should stop bombing them right now, Ben?
That on the air. They recently quietly revised those numbers and reduced the amount of children that Hamas claims was dead. You didn't cover that on the air. You also, for some reason, didn't cover all the weeks now of protests against Hamas in Gaza. So there's protests in Gaza that for some reason you're choosing not to cover. Yet when people here are supporting
We're not funding Hamas.
That is something that should be protected.
We're funding Israel. We're not funding Hamas. We're funding Israel. We're not deporting people because they disagree with Palestinians. We're deporting people because they've made the grave crime of disagreeing with beloved almighty Israel, who we should all bow down to, because Israel first, America 18th. So Ben, it is inarguable that this does not apply to any other nation on earth. There is one nation that is so powerful that it could force America to trash its own constitution to get any critic of Israel outside this country. And denying that is just simply denying reality.
No. That is quite the opposite. It's the only nation that is a safe haven for Jews, and nobody ever here is attacking the existence of 22 Arab nations surrounding Israel, the 7 nations constantly attacking Israel. And so when our allies under constant attack and people...
Yeah, we started killing all these women and children and starving people and doing all kinds of terror, and everybody's watching it on their phones. And you know what? They all decided they hated us. They all decided that they hated us. And you know what? Those people need to be punished. That's essentially what he's saying.
People want to come to this country and trash that nation and say it should not exist and that safe haven should be removed and compares them to Nazis. That is a very grave danger for Jews here in America, and your inclination to not want to protect that and say you don't get to be...
How's comparing Israel to Nazis a grave danger for Jews in this country? That's fucking crazy. Even if you disagree with that, even if you think it's like hyperbolic to compare the Israeli government to the Nazi regime, which by the way, it's not at all hyperbolic. I was making that comparison even before fucking October 7th. I was saying 100% they're laying the groundwork for some Nazi shit right here. That's the entire makeup of their government, right? But how the fuck is that? Like, what case is that even making? That Jews here in America, what if someone's going to go up and attack them because they heard that Israel is doing Nazi shit, which they are. We can't acknowledge reality now because someone might say something mean to Ben Gleib or whatever. Like, what even is the fucking argument being made?
Not only that, he just said there's 15 countries trying to attack them, and then in the next breath said it's the safe and only safe place for Jewish people. So what is it, dude? Well, in 1948, we showed up and we started kicking people out of their homes and killing and taking shit. And, ever since then, we just really, our neighbors soured on us. I don't know. Yeah, no shit.
Be in America, if you're going to have that position against the one place on earth that is protecting Jews, that is an arguably
are they protecting
anti-Semitic
Palestinians?
and real
Not
garbage.
protecting Jews, by the way. We're going to slaughter tens of thousands of Palestinians. Slaughter and
Tell
slaughter, man.
Hamas
Take
to
half their
end the
land.
war,
They're
then.
already
Tell Hamas to
occupying
get
half
rid
of
of-
Gaza. I told you they were going to go
Tell
steal the
Hamas to
land.
end the war.
Are you ever going
Tell
to admit
Hamas to end
that
the war.
the whole point was to actually steal the land and that they're in the middle of occupying 50% of Gaza now? Are you ever going to admit that, or is there no occupation? No, golly gee, this was just, it's a year and a half after October 7th, they're still slaughtering children today. Oh, I'm sorry, that was blood libel. Kick me out. How dare I say anything wrong against the beloved government of Israel? Well, didn't I know this is America where freedom of speech doesn't exist anymore? If you criticize Israel?
Did you admit that it in fact was not ethnic cleansing, like you promised me on air you would admit?
100% ethnic cleansing.
And they were allowed.
100. Are you claiming it's not ethnic
return to
cleansing?
the north?
Are you
You
claiming
said
it's
if they
not
were
ethnic
allowed to
cleansing when they're pushed all the Palestinians in Gaza to a small area in
By the way,
Gaza? They've
I totally agree with everything that Cenk is saying here. He's totally killing it. But I did just get a flashback to like a week ago when he was scolding protesters for yelling and screaming. Remember that? He was like, you should really let them make their case before yelling or cutting them off. And don't be rude. That's going to turn people off. To make your case and have them believe it, you need to, meet them where they're at or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. Cenk is do as I say, not as I do kind of a guy.
occupied half the land. That's the definition of ethnic cleansing, Ben.
And then they've been allowed to return to the north, to their homes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Can you imagine saying that? Can you imagine saying that? Bro, Google a picture of North Gaza, you fucking psychopath. You fucking psychopath. The government you're saying didn't do an ethnic cleansing, said everybody has to travel south. Travel to South Gaza. Okay, great. Cross the Rafah crossing. Go Google a picture of Rafah now. Okay? They're bombing schools. They've bombed hospitals. There's no fucking hospitals left. There's no schools left. There's no food. There's no medicine. There's nothing.
Yeah, they've cut off the food for the last 5 weeks, starving them to death. This beloved nation of Israel, it's turned into a grotesque terrorist nation. We shouldn't spend a single dollar, and we shouldn't bow down to them and just start getting rid of our First Amendment just because it makes Netanyahu angry. Get him out! Get him out!
Have you ever heard of nations
He
at
ordered
war
Biden,
being
he ordered
responsible
Trump,
for
and all
the
I ever do is listen to Netanyahu's orders.
Being responsible for aid, you've blocked it. It's a major war crime. There's a massive blockade. There's food rotting. There's medicine that needs to get to sick people. There's people who don't have legs. They can't walk.
Have you ever heard of a nation at war being responsible for the aid to that nation? Why aren't you yelling at Egypt with their 7-layer border wall to bring in aid into the Palestinian people? Because you don't care. If it's not Jewish people,
Egypt is occupying Gaza. I hear you. All right, listen, we're way past time. We are going to do a bonus episode for the members, and we do have other serious
We're going to crush a beer after this, guys.
He's about to say that.
violations of the Constitution by Trump. But look, this is a discussion. We get heated, but you need to hear both sides. I thank you, Ben, for being on and representing that side. And for people who say, no, you shouldn't represent both sides, I lived with that my whole life, where we didn't get to represent the Palestinian side. So I'm not going to deny that of anyone else, including the Israeli side. And yes, we will have a beer afterwards. And if you don't like that, and you don't want any conversation, and you don't want a discussion, this is not the show for you. But you just heard both sides. You make
Yeah, we can have this conversation, but not the one that Francesca wanted to have. And that's the problem, bro. It's like, again, I actually would defend this conversation's existence on TYT. If it were, I mean, it does make me uncomfortable paying Ben Gleib anything, like having TYT membership money go to his paycheck. But just the concept of having these conversations, yeah. Like, I don't think the Israeli perspective should be censored as genocidal and Nazi-like as I believe it to be. I don't believe it should be censored. I'm glad we had that conversation to react to. The issue is we don't get to have conversations with Francesca. She doesn't get to come on and say her piece and get intense and scream and yell. But this genocidal freak does. It's wild.
Imagine for 1 second that Olayemi Olurin had gone on there and screamed at Cenk like that about cash bail. He would have never fucking said, you know what? I'm glad we had that conversation. Olayemi, if you're ever in California, I'd love to buy you a drink. Let's talk it out in person. Let's hash it out. Like, if fucking Mike Figueiredo or whomever had gone on there and locked horns. Sam Cedar had locked horns with Cenk. about some niche issue that he fucking disagrees with the left on, homeless people, crime, whatever, do you think for 1 second that he would end the conversation being like, oh, well, it's okay. We're all still on the left. It's really important that we have these conversations. We're going to get a beer after that. I love these guys. You know what? We're going to have martinis. We're going to talk about it even more because I actually really want to understand them when there's no, like, we never get that from Cenk. So while I appreciate getting to watch Cenk absolutely destroy Ben Gleib, it was good content for us. I personally enjoyed that with all of you. It was a flashback to a easier time with Cenk, back when he still had some riz, back when he still had a conscience. But you're right. The more you marinate on it, you're like, okay, well, Francesca doesn't have a paycheck coming from these guys anymore. And it's not because, it's crazy. She can't even get invited on the damage report anymore. Yeah. She can't do anything for this corporation. But you are perfectly happy to lock horns, scream, yell, call names, do whatever with this rabid Zionist crazy person, okay, who wants to gloss over the ethnic cleansing of children, of all Palestinians. This guy who's going to run cover for the shredding of our constitutional rights, who wants to lie and say that people who aren't from this country, who aren't citizens in this country, don't have the same rights as you and me. A fundamental fucking lie.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's weird too, because like I said, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is the one issue where Cenk really still gets riled up. He'll really get riled up. You get those flashbacks to the old base Cenk. But seemingly it's the one issue where he tolerates the most amount of, disagreement from the people who actually work for him and the people who he pays. Because he couldn't tolerate the issues with Francesca and so many other people. But not only is Ben Gleib still a member of the TYT family, but we've also talked a lot about Brianna Wu, who I would argue is even more insane and even more genocidal than Ben Gleib. And she's actually working for AIPAC and literal Israel lobby groups out there that straight up just exist to manufacture consent for genocide and to professionally launder propaganda for Israel. That is the point of these groups. And she explicitly works for them. So it is weird that, Cenk does, to his credit, get really riled up about this. He's on the right side of it. But he also pays a lot of people that are not on the right side of it at all.
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Maybe you guys in chat and Gavin can explain it to me, but what is the pathology that, for as passionate as Cenk got right there? I don't believe he was faking it when he was making those arguments. I think that Cenk genuinely believes what he was saying.
Yeah, he goes that crazy on Piers Morgan too.
So what inside him is telling him, hey, it's serious if you have right-wing opinions, but if you're at all to the left of me, I cannot associate with you. We are at war with each other. You are my mortal enemy, but not the person that's cheerleading for Israel. Multiple people cheerleading for an ethnic cleansing, and Cenk has so much leeway with them. He's so chill with that. He'll get worked up and then say, let's have a beer. Anybody who's to the left of him, he immediately cuts you off. He immediately slanders you. He tries to make it so you can't earn a living. It's crazy.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there.